Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I was at a school recently, about a year ago, and I don't do schools anymore as a writer. I'm a writer by trade, a creative by trade, and have been since I was born. I think that we're born creative, and then we teach ourselves as we grow that we're not. And then we get to about 60 or 70, or whenever we feel like there's death's coming about. So you could be 16 then as well. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to be 60. And then we decide that we want to be creative. We want to interpret our lives. And I don't believe that. Creativity is not the monopoly of artists. It's a really important thing to know, to believe, and to live. Because we work in the creative industries and are not directly an artist does not mean to say we're not driven by creativity, and we shouldn't close ourselves off from that, because otherwise we're going to die inside the more we work. We're going to feel like everybody else gets to do the fun stuff and we get to just facilitate it. We facilitate it. And the truth is that actually everything that we do is fed by creativity, and all we need to do is to see that, and to see it is to embrace the idea and the thought and the truth that we are born creative. There's nothing more creative than a single mother working out which school and how she'll get a child to that school in the future. There's nothing more creative than dancing. There's nothing more creative than flashing music in a square and lots of people making very, very surreal movements to that music to get a buzz. There's nothing more creative than laughing. There's nothing more creative than crying, than the reasons we laugh and than the reasons that we cry. Creativity is at the heart of us, at the heart of all of us, and it is not the monopoly of artists. And the more that you can understand that, the more you can actually enjoy not only your life, but your work as well, and every interaction that you have. I just had an interaction just before I came here. Somebody came to me outside and said, my husband, it was outside this building, said, my husband reads your poetry and it means a lot to him, and he wants me to know you to know that. I don't know why I said that. A child in a school said to me, are you famous? And I said, the answer's in the question, pal. And I just stared at him. I'm a poet by trade. I write poetry. And the truth is, looking creatively, for example, that there are more words passing between more people now since the beginning of time. More words passing between more people now since the beginning of time. And if that is not revolutionary, if that has not caused revolutionary action to happen, then nothing has. The revolution that we look back at, I look back at my age, of the 1960s, It's now, and it's bigger than it was then. Then they were printing leaflets with staplers in the middle and folding them on a printer and pushing them out and saying, that's my book, that's my poetry. Now people are doing it online. This morning, every single day of my life, I write a poem and I put it up on Twitter, and it's got to do with how I feel this is a moment where you're looking through your Twitter feed in front of an audience, Lemn. You dick. And my tweet this morning, and you're actually referencing yourself. My tweet, you tosser. My tweet this morning is, let dark days be done tomorrow, vote yes. See the rising sun, an island fluoresce. And there's a better one than that. That's the one. Come on, I should have read that first. Here comes the sun with a new day to address. Let dark days be done, vote yes. So every single day, I throw out a tweet, and sometimes it's crap. Sometimes it's crap. Sometimes I'm throwing out a tweet that means that I might not be good. That somebody can look at it and think, well, he's not that good after all. It's a bit pithy. And I do them every single day, and I do them between 5 o'clock and 7:30 and 9 a.m. in the morning. One of them ended up being a building built by Morag Myerscough, the designer that got the front page of Creative Review at Greenwich. Another one's tattooed on somebody's arm. That's a bit stupid in my book. But the point is that Morag Myerscough, the designer, who got front page of creative review for that design of that building in Greenwich that had my tweet on top of it, she started to do it. And she put out 4 colours every day. It doesn't have to be linear. 4 colours every day. One represented something she was wearing. One represented the colour of the sky. One represented how she was feeling. 4 colours, that was it. And people started to follow it and people started to ignore it. She used a year of those 4 colours to design a hospital. In other words, doing something non-linear, online, for me with words and for her, because she was describing the colours via their words, can actually make magic and powerful things happen. And I do believe that the revolution is now. I wanted to. Shall we split up into small groups and discuss whether what I'm doing is relevant or not? Shall we do that? But to split up into small groups and discuss whether what I'm doing is relevant or not, we'll need to get a worker to administrate the process. And to get a worker, we'll need funding. So we'll set up one group that'll be the funding group, and another group which will be the management group, and another group which will be the constitution group, so that we can get the funding to get the worker to administrate the process as to whether what I'm doing here is actually relevant. Or we'll have to send out evaluation forms into the community so that we can decide, so that we can know whether what I'm doing here is relevant or not. We'll have to consult the community. We'll rig the questions so that we can get the funding. That's very important. And not only will we have to do that, but we'll have to rig the questions so that we can get the funding, which actually isn't about whether or not what I'm doing here is relevant. But we'll throw in a few workshops just to placate that funding need. So we'll get a worker. No, we'll need a capital funding to house the worker to administrate the process as to whether what I'm doing is relevant or not. We'll have to apply to a different fund to get the worker to administrate the process. We'll have to set up an equal opportunities panel to interview the worker to administrate the process as to whether what I'm saying here is relevant or not. And we all know who should get the job, but we'll have to put it out publicly. And the thing is, the person who gets the job to administrate the process as to whether what I'm doing here is relevant in this particular environment turns out to be a tosser. So what we'll have to do, somebody's laughing going, oh, that's... So what we'll have to do is to set up another group, to consult another community, to get another group of funding, to get a worker to administrate the process as to whether what I'm doing here is different. What I'm saying is that as a writer, I identified in my mind's eye that somebody who was brought up in children's homes had a horrific time when they were 18 years of age and they left the children's homes. And I thought to myself, I want to get a group together to give them between 18 and 25 years of age a Christmas that they will never forget with the greatest presents. They'll be picked up in taxis. They'll be at the great venue. They'll have the best chef. I got a group of 12 people together in Manchester and said, I don't want this to be an organisation. Nobody will be the boss. There will be no organisation. There will be no meetings in the classic sense. There will be no minutes taken. I want the highest standards. I want accredited kitchens. I want personal liability insurance. I want DBS checks for all the volunteers. We've got 12 weeks to do it. I got 12 people around a table. We set up a Facebook page so that they could communicate to each other. That was incredibly important to the fuel of it. They met, and this is without meetings. This is without money. This is without anything other than the drive to make this thing happen. In Manchester, it happened on Christmas Day, with presents for 60 young people in 2013. Manchester and Hackney in 2014. Manchester, Hackney, Liverpool 2015. Manchester, Hackney, Liverpool, Leeds and Birmingham 2016. Last year, in December, it was in 12 cities across the world, across the country, and this year it'll be in 20, feeding thousands of children. We raised the money through crowdfunder. We gave them £5,000 per Christmas dinner and said, we don't want to give you any more. That's contingency money. We'd rather you did it for nothing, because half of the job, this iceberg project, is that you go out into the community and you find the presents from them so that they can be educated, that they can do something good for the child in care rather than reading about them in the newspaper. They can see them as in need rather than seeing them as a threat. Harry Potter was a foster child. Superman was fostered and adopted. James and the Giant Peach. Elf. Oliver Twist, Radio 4 at the moment, Heathcliff, orphaned. We are front and centre as children in care in popular culture, and nobody knows it, and they don't know it because of prejudice, which is why we got people to go out into the community to get the venue, to get the presents, to get the taxis, to get everybody on board. There's a how-to guide, and it's still not a national organisation. It still only happens within the community that it happens in. It still hasn't got a worker. It's been covered on the BBC, Channel 4, throughout the country, because it's a good damn thing. And it all surrounds a Facebook page. And it all surrounds words and the articulation and the articulation of the idea beyond it only being defined by whether it gets funds. I've watched, as my career has gone on, I've watched creativity die at the feet of funding, at the feet of a bank, and it doesn't have to actually be that way. Creativity is not the monopoly of artists. Music is not the monopoly of players. Therefore, we have DJs. One of the most creative and incredible. So the revolution is now. Things are happening now, and I'm glad to be alive right now. I'm glad to be able to do something now, the Christmas dinner, be part of that. It wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. It wouldn't have happened, and it's happening now. And I just want to say something about positive discrimination. It's been happening for years. For years and years. It's been happening for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It's just been happening for one type of person. So when people talk about positive discrimination now, say in Oxford University or in our workplaces, or we hear about it and somebody stands up and says, well, it has to be on merit. 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 Was that black enough? Was that urban? Was that urban? It's no surprise that people would say it has to be on merit, because they're the ones who've had the benefit of positive discrimination for years. It makes total sense that there would be such an attack on the idea that having somebody who's there because of positive discrimination can't work. The only reason that happens is because the people who are saying that have been the beneficiaries of positive discrimination in itself for years. I see them. I'm Chancellor of the University of Manchester. I see them on the walls. Have I just shouted at you? I apologise. Because that's not what I want to do. I want to share ideas with you that keep us alive. Because diversity is about being alive, in my opinion. I'm a writer by trade, and I just want to give you an example of positive discrimination. Doctor Who and the Daleks. I can't wait. There will be a black Doctor Who at some point. But there are people who say there shouldn't be. It's a man, and it was a man and a doctor. But they believe in Daleks. And we have to deal with this every single day when people make these kind of comments to us. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to say have a great day. And if you take one thing away from this for the inside of you, please take away the idea that that creativity is not the monopoly of artists, it's yours as well. I'm sure you know that already. I apologise if it sounds like I've patronised you. When I used to do schools, I would say to the young people, I'm not going to patronise any of you. The teachers would say, teachers would gurn when I said that. And then I would leave a pause and say, do any of you know what patronising means? And the teachers would be like, yes, back on board. My name is Lemn Sissay. I'm a writer. I've been reasonable. I'll give you half my fee back. The last time I did this, I used a speech, didn't I? And that's a deal. That's who I am. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.